all feel with the monkey getting the cucumber, I think. I think the monkeys in Frans de Waal's video teach us that inequity aversion is very real. Just like those capuchin monkeys, people do not like to be treated unfairly, and will, for example, reject low offers in the ultimatum game that you read about in the Economy, Society and Public Policy chapter, or engage in something like costly punishment of cheaters or norm breakers. But what happened with the grape monkey? He didn't give up his grapes voluntarily, of course. So sometimes charity may not be enough. If you followed up on some of the research in the ESPP chapter, you will have noticed that many of these experiments are, of course, done with college students, and the stakes are really, really low. So people get paid a few dollars or a few dozen dollars at best in those experiments. And there are some questions about external validity. But there's a really clever paper that uses game shows like Golden Balls to test these effects. And unfortunately, it shows that if the stakes get higher, people act more in line with the expectations of the game theorists and more selfishly. So maybe relying on altruism and fairness is not quite enough. We now have three categories of solutions to the problem of cooperation. But the one that is perhaps most obvious in a political science department is, of course, external enforcement. Enter Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, the state, to bring order to chaos, to guarantee property rights and contracts and punish rule breakers. How this works? The state, the evolution and change of institutions, and what new problems this creates will be the topic of next week's lecture. But before we move on to next week and before Friday's seminars, I would like you to take a couple minutes and think about a situation from your daily life or any political or social interaction that you think is a bit like a prisoner's dilemma, like the problem of cooperation. And I want you to sort of write down a little bit, describe why you think that is, how it works, what the situation is that you're focusing on, and whether people end up sort of finding some of these solutions that we've encountered, or whether we end up in the bleak defect bad outcome. All of these are fine, and then I want you to post your example, a brief description of your example on Moodle, and hopefully if we all do this, we will find some examples there already, and you can upvote the best examples from your classmates, and we'll look at them together on Friday. The last thing I wanted to do is invite you to have a look at some further readings. The first thing listed here is a Khan Academy video on the prisoner's dilemma in Nash equilibrium, and that uses the classic prisoner kind of situation. And if you are not 100% sure, didn't follow along 100% when I described the prisoner's dilemma, I think this is a really nice resource to sort of rewatch it and have someone else explain the mechanism. The second reading is, of course, Robert Axelrod's The Evolution of Cooperation, which is the classic book that describes the idea of the iterated game and the tit-for-tat strategy, and has the, for example, the World War example and others in it. And it's a really nice sort of quick read. The next one is a Nowak paper, 5 Rules for the Evolution of Cooperation. The science paper basically looks at different mechanisms via which cooperation can be sustained. It's perhaps a bit more advanced from a mathematical point of view, but if those of you who are so inclined, maybe have a quick look. The second to last one, the Henrik and others paper, Foundations of Human Sociality, or book, I guess, Economic Experiments and Ethnographic Evidence from 15 Small-Scale Societies, basically takes the problem of cooperation, the prisoner's dilemma, to various different types of societies and sees how do they play the prisoner's dilemma? How do they act in an experiment? Do they act like the people we saw in the game show, or like college students, or do they act differently? And it's quite interesting to look at this. And the last one is the one I already mentioned, the game show paper that looks at how people play in these game shows as a sort of real life experiment. Okay, with those additional resources, have a look if you want, and I'm looking forward to read your examples of the prisoner's dilemma on Moodle and to see you in the seminar on Friday.